Hi, it's Jenny from the Missouri Star Quilt Company, and I've got such a fun project for you today. Take a look at this quilt behind me. It is all made up of arrows running different directions, and it's just so cute. I just fell in love with it. I wanted to call it a quilt for Katniss, or the Mockingjay quilt. I don't know, something with arrows, but we're going to stick with the arrow quilt for now. So to make this quilt, what you're going to need is one packet of 10-inch pre-cut squares. We've used Fairy Frost and the Color Box Way. It's by Michael Miller, just an adorable line of fabric. You're also going to need about 5 yards of background fabric, and that will take care of your sashing and everything. And I know it's a lot of fabric, but it sure is worth it. Look how cute that is. You're also going to need a couple of templates. We've used the half hexie and the simple wedge, or you can use your Sizzix machine, and I have mine right here. And Sizzix went ahead and made all of our dies, all of our templates into dies. So we have those, and I love to use those when I have a lot to cut out, and that's what I'm going to be doing today. So let's start with our 10-inch square. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to cut an 1.5 inch strip off of it, and that's going to make the shaft of our arrow. So let me do that. And you're going to want to make these cuts out of on each layer cake. You're going to want to make all these cuts, and then you'll mix your colors up. So then what we're going to do is we're going to fold this in half right here, and I'm going to cut a couple of these. You can see I have my template on there, a couple of the half hexies out of this, and also one of the arrow points out of this. So let me show you how I do that when I use the Sizzix. I'm going to find my die, and I've got my half hexie die right here. I've folded my fabric in half, and I'm going to make sure that it fits on here, so it fits on here just right. Looks like I'm going to have to fold this way. There we go. And so I'm folding that. I have my piece of plastic, my acrylic piece that goes on the bottom, and my acrylic piece that goes on the top. And these are just fillers. And so then we're just going to feed them through. Just roll this through. It's just easy roll. Great if you don't want to do a lot of cutting. And then we've got our little half hexies right here. And then we need to do our arrow point. So we're going to get our other die cut right here. And we are going to lay this on here, make sure that it completely, we don't lose any part of the point. Again, we're just going to put our sheets, acrylic sheets on top and bottom. We're going to slide this in. Turn the handle, and we've got our points. Easy as that. All right, so now we get to start assembling our blocks. You're going to cut a whole bunch of these. You're going to cut, we're going to make 40 arrows, so you're going to cut 80 of these, and 40 points, and 40 of the shafts as well. And then you're going to mix them all up because you want your arrows to be all different colors. So we're going to start with the shaft block, and that is our 1.5 inch strip, which we have right here. And then their background pieces are 3 by 10. So this is 1.5 by 10 because it's the whole width of the layer cake. And then these are 3 inches by 10 inches, and you're going to sew them to the sides. So let's go to the sewing machine and do that. All right, so now we are just going to sew 1/4 inch down the sides on both sides of our long strip. So there's one side, and I'm just going to grab this other one and put it on the other side here. There we go. All right, so now we've got the shaft sewn together, and let's press this out. So I like to, set these edges and then roll this back. So once you get the shaft of your arrow together, we're going to make the feather blocks. The feather blocks are made using our half hexie pieces, and you're going to need 2 for each arrow. And to make your side pieces right here, this is just a background hexie right here, cut in half. So here's our background, and we've cut it exactly the same way, and we're just going to cut it in half. And how I do that is I lay my hexie, it's 5 inches wide, so I know that I'm going to cut in at 2.5 from this side right here. So we're going to go ahead and cut this like this, and you're going to need 2 of these for each arrow part. So then you're going to turn these around, and they make the sides of your feather block. And we're going to do that with 2 of those. So let's go ahead and sew these on. You want to make sure they're going the same direction. This angle can get a little bit crazy sometimes. So I got one here and one on the other side. And I always roll it back to make sure it's going the right direction. I'm a little angrily challenged, I'll admit it. All right, so once again, I want to show you again how I do this, because you need 2 of these for this block. Let me iron that back. So here's our half hexie right here, and then we're going to take our little background piece here. We're going to cut it in half, and we're going to put these on either side. So here's the sides of our block, and you want to lay them on there so it looks right, and then fold that over. And when you go to put this on, it doesn't really, these edges don't really match up with anything. You just want to make sure that it's on the edge of the side of your hexie, and sew 1/4 inch right down there. So let's do that. You're not looking, you know, a lot of them have like little notches and things like that. Ours is just the shape, so we're not looking to match anything up on that. We're just looking to sew it on 1/4 inch on the side. And then stitch it down just like this. And we're going to press it open. And then we're going to sew these 2 together like this, and they should line up pretty evenly. So just like that, and sew 1/4 inch down. And then what we want to do is all these blocks have to be squared up to 6 inches. Our whole block ends up being 18.5 by 6. So each of these segments we want to square up to 6 inches. So I take my 6-inch ruler right here. It has the 3-inch. I put it in the middle of my block, and I just trim off either side. And I'm going to do that for each one of these segments to make sure that it's a 6-inch block. Even the shaft, we need to trim that up as well. And I generally wait and do all my trimming. Like when I have all my blocks done, then I'll sit and trim them all at once. And this one ends up being pretty close because it's a straight piece. We can pretty much, you know, make that happen pretty easily. But trim it up just a little bit. And again, I'm using my mark in the middle here, my 3-inch mark right down the center of my shaft. All right, so all we have now to do is the point. And what we're going to do is we're going to use a piece of fabric that is, I believe this is 6 by 7.5. Let me make sure. It's 7.5 by 6-inch piece. And we're going to do the fold and sew method for this point. This is such an easier method than cutting out all these. And so we just want to do the fold and sew. So what we're going to do is we're going to center up our simple wedge cutout on our block. Then we're going to fold this over right here, right to the edge of our block, just like this. Make sure it's snug right in there. And we're going to sew this down right on top of here, just 1/4 inch. I don't know how many of you have tried to cut out the pieces when you use a triangle like this, cut out all those pieces and get them together, but this is a way faster way. So now you just want to open this up, make sure you've caught all your seams, and we're going to iron that back. Then we're going to take the other side and we're going to fold and sew that. All right, head over the sewing machine. I love this fold and sew method. It's really, it just makes things quick and easy. So then, once we iron this back, we have this great little block that's all finished, all done. We haven't had to work hard. Now we just need to square it up. And I'm going to trim off the bottom so they're even, just like that. And it again trims up to 6 inches wide. And you can make sure your point runs right along the arrow point is going to run right along your 3-inch line. And then it's this should be 5 inches tall. So we're going to go here with the 5. Just like that. So now we have our 3 components and we can put our arrow together. So then, because we've squared them all up to 6 inches wide, we can just put them together just like this. So let's start with our tail feathers and sew that down. Like this, we'll press it back. And then we're going to add our point onto the front. Isn't this fun to see this coming together? Sew it again, 1/4 inch. It doesn't matter which way these seams go because each block is individual and they go in rows. You're going to put them together in rows. So here's our point right here. Let me iron this back. And you've got this darling arrow. So now what we're going to do is we're going to sew these together in rows of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And they're sewn on just point to tip, point to tip. Each row has 4. However, every other row, we've cut the last arrow in half and added it onto the back end so that they stagger. This just gives them a little bit of stagger. Let me show you what I mean here. So we've got this row of 4 right here. And then we've got our next row, and it has 3 on it, and we're going to run it the other direction. And then we're just going to take one of these arrows, cut it in half, and add the tail onto one side. See right here, the tail is on this side, and add the point onto the other. So when we're ready to assemble this, you just want to lay it out and you want to add a 2.5 inch strip. This is part of our sashing strip. So you have your row of arrows, your 2.5 inch strip, your row of arrows going the other direction with the pieces in half, 2.5 inch strip, and so on. You just go all the way down like that. You're going to end up with 4 arrows across, and I believe there's 10 arrows down the side. It makes a quilt that ends up being, let me see how much it is. It ends up being 82 by 87, and so it's just a great size quilt. We've used a 3-inch border on the outside edge, and so for that you're going to need about 3/4 yard. 3 times 8 is 24, so 3/4 yard will make our outer border, and you're going to be good to go with the most darling arrow quilt ever. So we hope you enjoyed this tutorial from the Missouri Star Quilt Company on the Arrow Quilt. Quilt Company. I've got such a project for you today. Prim projects. So this is not a good start. It's a prim project.